My name is Jacob Stoops.
And I'm Jeff Luella.
And you're listening to the Page 2 Podcast.
This is our podcast about the people of the SEO industry.
We chronicle the real-life stories, experiences, challenges, and advice from some of the most amazing people in the business. In this episode, we talk with Sarah McDowell, SEO specialist at Like Mind Media and co-host of the SEO SAS Podcast, a podcast that delves into individual SEO issues each week. We discuss how she went from a background in dance to a digital marketing role focused on link building and then eventually into a career in SEO, her experiences going between agencies and in-house roles, founding her own business and eventually shutting it down, the challenges and psychology of getting stuff implemented, and much, much more. In addition, we cover and share our perspective on the recent SEO kerfuffle around the subject of hiring for SEO and interview questions, which stems from a tweet put out by Bill Hartzer, which caused a few side eyes in the industry. And to round out this episode, we deep dive into what went into founding her podcast, and we share our experiences on what it's like to run an SEO podcast, as well as some of the behind-the-scenes work that goes into making a podcast come to life. So get your popcorn ready as we tell Sarah's SEO story and have another great roundtable discussion. Hey everybody, this is Jacob Stoops, and we are here for another episode of the Page 2 Podcast. Hi Jeff, how's it going?
It's going well. How you doing?
That's I feel like our bit, Jeff. You've got to come like
I got to come stronger.
You come the same way every week, and I feel like you got to like keep me on my toes in terms of I'm not very good at figuring out a great way to introduce you. Maybe I'll just let you do the introductions and you introduce me.
All right, maybe I'll come up with my own recorded drop, and it'll be like a mega like coming soon.
Dun, dun, dun. And we also have as a guest from across the pond, Sarah McDowell, SEO specialist at Like Mind Media, and you might better know her as the host of the SEO SAS Podcast. How's it going, Sarah?
I am thrilled to be on your podcast. So things are going really well for me. How about you guys?
Pretty good. It's getting, as my kids are reminding me, we're about 2 weeks away from Christmas, and Christmas time and holiday time in agency world it's crazy, man. It's been crazy.
It's crazy, then it just dies.
Yeah. Then everybody goes on PTO.
See, for me, it's squeezing the same amount of work that needs to be done, but in less time. So obviously, instead of a month, I've only really got 2.5 weeks to still do all the jobs that I need to. So it's a bit of a headache, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the life we live. It's nice to have another podcaster on with us.
Likewise. It's nice to talk to a fellow podcaster or podcasters.
Before we jumped on, that this was the first podcast where you've actually been a guest.
Yes, so please be kind and please be gentle with me.
That's what the last people said. I'm wondering if we're getting a reputation. That's funny.
Well, no, because I've been listening to your podcasts, and yeah, I've just got it's a good one. So I want like me as a guest. I want to do well. So yes, but
awesome.
This is my first time. But after today, we have been invited to be on another one, sort of thing. So, but yeah, it's weird to not have control of the podcast. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you're a control freak, but if you are a control freak, this is probably really difficult.
A bit uncomfortable. No, I'm fine, really. I'm fine.
So especially with your podcast, obviously I feel like the way that we've booked guests has been very, very organic in terms of like, there are people that are known, I feel like commodities and have been for some time in the industry. And when I sat down about a year ago and tried to figure out, okay, like, what do I want to do with the podcast? Who do I want on? In even this year, there are definitely names that I feel like they come up in all the conferences, like you know them. You can almost like put mug shots or whatever. And but one of the other things that has happened that I've noticed, and why I say it's very organic and not really, I don't really think the way that we book guests is stale, is if you're following SEO on the Twitter, I feel like especially recently there have been a lot of newer people that have come across my feed that I have found very interesting. And when I find that to be the case, I say, I think I want to talk to them. And you happen to be one of those people that I would say is a little bit, and I don't know how long you've been doing this. We'll get into that. But as far as it relates to me noticing your presence on Twitter, I would say that's been more recent, and especially because you're a fellow podcaster, I was like, I really think it would be great to have you on. So that's why you're here, and you were gracious enough to say yes and to come on. And I think we're really interested to hear your story.
Okay, so how do I start? That's the question. So I mean, I sort of fell into SEO, to be completely honest. So sorry.
As does everybody.
Well, I got a degree in dancing and realised that it was far too competitive, and I was better at African than any other principal, and then I couldn't make a living. So I was like, right, what can I do? And I basically applied for a reception role at a SEO company. That role had been filled, but they wanted to grow their link building team. So that's where I started. And that was 2012, I believe. So how many years ago is that? Is that like 6 or 7? I'm not very good with math.
Last time I checked, that was 7.
So yes, and I was working in that agency for a good few years, and I learned everything on the job. So I started from the bottom, sort of link building, and then I did content and content outreach, and I was there for about 4 years, and I grew in the company, sort of thing, and then after being there for about 4 years, I then went to work in-house, because I was like, okay, so I've got agency. I want to know what it's like to work in-house and how different that is. Because obviously with agency, you've got the sort of different companies that you're working for, different industries, different challenges. So I was like, okay, I wonder if it's less of a headache if it's just internal. So yes, so I did that for a bit. And then I did that for a couple of companies. And then I finally, I did have my own sort of digital marketing agency for a bit. And I got lonely, to be completely honest. And Paul, my boss, I sort of knew, like he was a friend. And he was like, oh, why don't you just join Like Mind Media, which is where I work now. And he brought me in. So whenever he hires someone, he wants to hire someone that has a specialism in some sort. So obviously I came in with my SEO, and I sort of went with him like, oh, I've got an idea to do a podcast. I mean, I don't know if I'm like jumping a bit ahead of myself, but shall I go in and talk about how the podcast came about? Does that make sense?
Let's leave that to the end, because I've got questions for you, and I definitely want to deep dive on the podcast towards the end of the episode. So let's wait on that one. We'll get back to it, and let's keep talking about you outside of the podcast.
Okay, me as an individual in the SEO world?
Exactly.
Okay, well, yes, so I basically, so like I said, I fell into it. I just love it because, I mean, this is the cliche, but we all know that Google is changing. Like what worked 5-10 years ago doesn't work now. And I can get quite bored as a person. I'm a bit flaky, friends reference there. So SEO kind of suits me because it's always changing. And you've got to sort of be ahead of your game, haven't you? You've always got to be reading what's what, going to industry events and stuff. And day-to-day activities, well, it's like every day So how I sort of work with my clients, or how clients come on board, is like, oh, I've got an issue with something, and they reach out and then they say, well, why is this? Can you help me? So then it's finding the reasons why, basically, behind, if I'm making sense. So I like the sort of diagnostic and putting my sort of investigator's hat on, and also just trying stuff, and like trialing things on a client's website and seeing if it works. If it doesn't work, then we're always transparent and say why, and we'll try something new. But at the same time, it's great when you try something and it does work, and they get an increase in traffic, or they get an increase in rankings, or the type of traffic is better for conversion, sort of thing.
So I have to ask, you've been in what I call agency world 3 times, but you also dabbled in-house. Which do you like better, and why?
Oh, right. I'm going to say agency. Just because with agency, you get to work with lots of different industries, and with different industries comes like different sort of challenges and problems. So when I was working in-house, yes, you get really good and you can niche in an industry. However, so when I was working for in-house, it was for a solicitor's firm. However, I prefer more agency because it's more varied and you get to try new things out. And especially when it comes to SEO, there's things that I can dabble and try as agency, whereas if I'm just stuck in-house working on one service, for example, I don't get to try new things as much.
Yeah, I feel sometimes, so I've always worked in agencies and never worked in-house. And sometimes I feel like I hit a limit on the agency side where, you know, I'm giving recommendations to my client who either has a development team or has hired a separate development team. And sometimes they have different priorities, right? So I'm always the outside person looking in at a lot of my companies that I'm working for, where I feel like if I went in-house, I could be in there badgering them every day to get my stuff installed. But then once it's implemented, you're right. I think after a while, you're just like, after working on the same site, and I think this is why I've always stayed at agencies, because like I have a team and I can, you know, a lot of in-house people, you're one person and, you know, you have a team. We actually get to definitely work on different things all the times, and clients really like to mess up their sites a lot. and we're there we're always there to be able to help. And I feel like I get a lot more, I get exposed to a lot more being at the agency level, but sometimes I don't feel like I get as deep as I want to get, where you could probably get in-house. But I think that's the toss between it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So obviously, if you are in-house, then you've got sort of one focus and you can spend more time. Because the one thing with agency is you've only got a finite amount of time, and we could all do with one more day. And also, it's sort of juggling what the client sees as a priority and what really is a priority. So I have conversations with clients quite a lot of time where they deem something more important than something else that I want to work on. And it's the challenge of sort of proving, okay, what you want to work on is important. However, like for example, when the medic update, that was quite a while ago now. It's the first update that I could think off the top of my head. There was quite a few of my clients where they needed to, especially the clients that were working in like giving money advice, medical advice. There was work to be done there on sort of on their about page and on the team page and getting their expertise across. And that's what I wanted to work on, whereas they wanted to work on other things like the fluffier stuff that look good. Do you know what I mean? And that's the challenge really, isn't it? Is managing clients' expectations and getting the point across that this is what needs to be worked on and this is why.
I always feel like, well, I've said it like many times. The hardest part of SEO is implementation. And I believe that occurs whether you're in-house or whether you're at an agency. I think the benefit of going in-house, and like sometimes when I'm at an agency, because I've jumped back and forth a couple of times, you're you're sometimes always yearning a little bit for like the grass is greener. And sometimes when you're getting bombarded with a bunch of different industries, a bunch of different clients, sometimes crazy work hours, you're always like, oh man, I wish I could just for once focus on one site for a finite amount of time and see it through. But then when I get there, I realize, just like Jeff said, I'm the only one on my team. And at a certain point, like, especially if you're having difficulty getting things implemented, it gets quite boring. So I've found over the years that I just, again, in-house SEOs are awesome. But I've found for me, the agency side tends to work a little bit more. But what I was getting to is the idea that sometimes implementation is really hard and it becomes an exercise in psychology. And what I mean by that is, how can I convince this third party to do what I need them to do in order to make myself, my agency, their site successful? And sometimes you really have to think about psychologically, what can you say to them to make them, or what can you show them to make them want to change their minds, which can be difficult because people don't like change, and there's often egos involved and different priorities, and that's part of the fun, especially in quote unquote agency world, being kind of on the outside, looking in, making the case to get your stuff implemented, because you do have a short time window. It's one of the greatest challenges we all face.
It does. I don't know if you guys watch Strictly Come Dancing, or the UK Strictly, but there was a judge on there. She's not a judge anymore, but Darcy Bussell, so the ballerina, and this will be relevant, I promise. But when she was giving feedback to dancers, she'd always give the Darcy Bussell shit sandwich. So where you sort of so you start with the positive, then you go with the negative, and then you go with the positive again. And that's how I sort of approach clients and stuff. So say, for example, a client has just, they've got a new website and then they've come to you to SEO it. Yeah. And that's what they actually say. Oh, can you just SEO this site? And it's like, okay, yeah, I've got issues with you just saying that, but hey, we'll get over that. But it's sort of and you realize that the site isn't technically sound for SEO, and that's where the shit sandwich comes in. So I always try and find a positive to say. So if I can find something about user experience or page speed, for example, I'll start with that. And then I'll say, however, this is not so good because this is the reasons why, and this is the opportunities. And then I'll end on a high as well. So there you go, the Darcy Bussell shit sandwich.
So I actually know more about dancing than you might think. So I'm not a dancer. I'm a terrible dancer. My wife grew up as a dancer. And why that's relevant now is because you mentioned like one of the only dance shows that she probably doesn't watch. But she watches literally every dance reality TV show. Well, I'm sure that there are more than this, but like we have watched Dancing with the Stars like every season since we've been together, which is going on like over a decade now. And also So You Think You Can Dance. So I'm pretty well versed in dance reality shows, and I'm actually surprised that I did not know that one.
Strictly. I mean, yes. I mean, it's the UK one. I mean, it's coming to an end now, but that's been on everyone's. Well, that's what me and my girlfriend watch.
What is your favorite type of dance?
Well, I've not danced in a very long time, but when I was at university studying it, I preferred African people's dance. So my course was dance and culture. So you got to do 5 different principles. Mm-hmm. So we did African, Kathak, which is Indian style of dancing, ballet. I was rubbish at ballet because it was just too strict. Didn't get on with that. Contemporary and choreography. So African people's dance was the form that I enjoyed the most. So
I would say, I think contemporary is the one that always, my wife is a major crier, and I'm like, I would say I'm a minor crier. Like I feel like I get a little bit emotional, and I feel like contemporary always kind of brings that out. But then I would say in terms of like just really cool to watch. I think it's called pop locking.
Okay.
I can't remember the name.
We're talking like street sort of
like
street dance.
Locking, like quick robotic movements. I always find that fascinating to watch. Jeff, can you pop lock?
I could do the robot stuff like
that. Beautiful moves.
No, I am not a good dancer whatsoever. I do like to dance to embarrass my kids.
That's a good dance. That's a good dance to have in your repertoire.
Fun fact, and the only other dance thing that I'm going to talk about, if you search YouTube for Jake and Gina wedding dance, I'm all over that. We actually did a choreographed dance at our wedding with something like 18 total bridesmaids and groomsmen.
Flipping out.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I'll be checking that out straight after this podcast.
Yes. I'm going to check it out right now while we're on it. No, I'm kidding.
Multitasking at its finest.
It's fun.
Cool. Jeff,
awesome.
Ask questions, man.
No, I don't know much about dancing, but no, I mean, I'm kind of been going through some of these news things and wanted to think we should jump into one of those, or
hold on. I wanted to ask about link building and what it's like, because I feel like a lot of the people that we have on tend to lean technical.
True.
More so than anything. And we've had a few that have come on from the content and link building side of the house. And as somebody that's been doing that for a long time, I guess I would ask you, Sarah, what is that like, and how do you feel like that has shaped your perspective on the available options to you as an SEO? Because I feel like there are some people that just don't do link building because they either think it's bad or risky or just not something they're comfortable doing. So how is that? I'm
one of them.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, so obviously when I first got into SEO and I was doing link building, I am going to put my hands up and say that I did, I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I did tend to do more of the bad sort of, well, not the bad, but the more spammy ways of on a forum and you get a link in somehow, or you just go on directories. And back in the day, sort of link building that worked, whereas now Google is prioritizing sort of quality and value of the link and relevancy as well. So I have found, so obviously because of that, link building nowadays, it takes a lot more time and a lot more effort needs to go into it, but you do get rewarded, and links are always going to be the bread and butter, because you hear that a lot, don't you? You don't need to link build anymore. That's not SEO. You don't need, but you still do. It's still going to be one of those fundamentals. It's still going to be one of the things that Google looks at. And there's different ways that you can go about link building. So for example, one way that I will always do is I always do competitor research at first. So using tools to find out where competitors have got links and seeing where I can, opportunities for my clients. I'll also think of content. So obviously, creating high value content that's shareable. So not just a boring stuff, but think content that's actually going to make someone stop and read and think, okay, this is going to help me. So I don't know, you doing original research or doing something that's emotional. So whether it's funny, if it's makes you cry sort of thing. And so obviously when you've put your time aside to put together this content, it's then reaching out to then get people to link to it. Also, there's another way. So say you're doing an expert piece and you could invite 7 experts in your industry to contribute to a piece. You then outreach to them and let them know because they'll link back to you, sort of thing. I mean, I do think there is a tendency that some companies will think, if I make content that is really valuable and really good, links will just come to me. Whereas as idealistic as that is, you do need some work and you do need to put it in front of people and tell people about it. But you could also do something that's a bit PR. So Brighton SEO, there was a talk by Oliver Brett, who works at Screaming Frog. And he was like showing how you can sort of use fake news. Now, I know fake news sort of gets a bit of a bad rep, but there is times where fake news is okay. So, for example, I don't know, there was a football game, a championship game or something, and it was England versus France. It was this T-shirt that would have the England flag, but then when you were around people from France and France supporters, it would turn into a French flag. And they put this product on the website. And obviously, it wasn't a real product. It was just something fun. They got that into the news and people wanted to link build to it. Another good example that I've seen, so Carrie Rose, who heads up an agency, link building agency, and who has been a guest on our show. So there's Game in the UK, and they came up with a Christmas dinner. So it was a Christmas dinner all in a can for gamers. And they optimized the site for that, and did a vegan and veggie version, and then reached out to the PR and newspapers and stuff like that, like the Drum or Lad Bible. And again, I don't know, I feel like I'm blabbing, but I don't know if that's given some insight there.
Yeah.
I think the key is, in today's world, like the easy stuff, it just doesn't work. It's the stuff that you had that's hard, and link building should be hard. In any links that you're building should be hard won, and you should have to be creative. And I think those tend to be the ones that at least Google says that they value more so than the ones that are a little bit more artificial and spammy. But one thing I wanted to say is, when people talk about link building, a lot of folks really think about it from an external standpoint in terms of a third-party site linking to your website. And when I think about link building, I think one of the most underrated aspects of link building is internal link building.
Yes.
Internal link building, right? A lot of times I'm dealing with a situation right now where we've got, on one of my clients, we went from not having a lot of pages that talked about their product to, over the course of this year, building those out. The problem exists is that they talk about their product on their blog quite a lot, but because these product pages are so new, they don't have a lot of links within the site.
Right.
So like our next step is, okay, let's take these 1,000 or so blog pages, because you're not putting these product links in your navigation yet, so they're not site wide. Well, let's increase the importance by looking at any time you're mentioning the product in your blog post, but it's not linked. And you can pretty easily use Screaming Frog's not custom extraction but search feature to go and look for any instances of where you're mentioning a specific word or phrase across your website, and boom, those are unlinked mentions within your own website. Easy.
And there's
sorry.
I was gonna say, there's actually WordPress plugins that would actually, if you use WordPress as your blog, you would automatically just say these are the terms, link here, and at any time a blog post was written, it would do that. And Zappos actually used to do that internally when with product reviews. Anytime, if you would say like, these Nike sneakers are awesome, and they would just highlight Nike automatically in a review. Like, as a reviewer, I'm not linking to that page. I think they recently stopped doing that, probably a little spammy, but it was internal. So there was one of those where they weren't linking out. They were just creating internal links that way. So
I've got, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just going to say, I think a lot of businesses miss a big opportunity with their homepage with internal linking. Especially like seasonal opportunities. So if you've got a Christmas promotion or Christmas products that are for the Christmas season, for example, or that's all the way year round, or maybe you've put together this really good bit of content that is adding value. It's got research, it's got experts, and people just forget to use the homepage to link to it. Because so Hannah, co-host of the SEO SAS podcast, came up with a really nice analogy. So when you're thinking of like internal linking, you got to think of the homepage as the trunk. So that's the core and that's the structure. Then you've got the branches, the first lots of branches, and that's sort of like your first sub pages that are coming off that. And then you've got your leaves as well, which are your child pages. And I thought that was a nice way to think of how your site and the sort of how you can use it sort of thing.
Yeah, and that actually, as you were saying, that reminded me of some of the newer visualization tools that some of the crawlers have come out with, and I've never thought of it as like an actual tree, but now I'm going to start thinking about it that way.
It just makes sense because like your home, I think people forget. And I mean, this is a bugbear of mine, is when people they're like, oh, we don't need much text on the homepage. Let's just have like pretty pictures. And it's just like, no, that is just a missed opportunity there. And yeah, so, I mean.
Most powerful page, people.
It's the most powerful page.
What people can't see is me shaking, not actually shaking myself, but shaking a fake client. Yeah.
And one more point on this is some people, I did have a conversation with a client where they were just like, they were worried that their homepage was going to be too long, like scrolling wise. And it was like, that's the wrong point here. Like, it wasn't even that long at all, but yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
It was funny. Jake, I sent a website that had like this gigantic, like looked like an HTML sitemap at the bottom of their homepage. With like every link to their whole site. I just went to go pull it up to kind of talk about it, and it seemed like they removed that. It might have been just for the holidays they put that in there. So it was a company off of that Amazon owned called Eastain. I like to go in Amazon's footer and look at all the companies. They list every company they kind of own or work with at the bottom. And it was one, I was like, I never heard of this one. And I clicked in it, and it literally was a hero image and then like an HTML sitemap underneath it for every single like category product page that they had, which I kind of liked because it got me through the site as quick as I could.
So from a navigational point of view.
And I think that's probably why they did it. So it was interesting. It's not there now.
Jeff, I've got one more question because I know you're chomping at the bit to get to the news, and I know that I also have a rant, so I want to get to that. But Sarah, you mentioned you were at an agency. You created an agency and then you decided not to do it anymore. Like what went into that?
Okay, so basically, I'm always up for trying something new, which is why I do a podcast. It's how I got into roller derby. So I'm always, if someone says, "Oh, Sarah, why don't you try?" I'm a trier, basically. So it was after a conversation. So when I worked at my last, so it was in-house for the solicitors that I mentioned earlier, they were mentioning that they were going to get rid of internal marketing and outsource it all. So obviously I had to go and find myself another job. And my boss at the time, not the boss now, but he was really, it was just quite inspirational because he was just like, Sarah, you've got, so I obviously had some connections still with the clients from that business because even though, yes, I worked internally for EHL, we also had like another branch which offered external marketing services. And I had good relationships with the clients. And my boss at the time was just like, you should try going on your own. When you go on your own, it's not like you have to start from scratch. You've already got, it was about 3 or 4 clients to start with. And when I approached them and said, look, the company's closing, but I've decided to go on my own. Would you if that's the case, would you be happy if I carried on? And everyone was supportive, and they were like, yes. So yeah, I did that for a bit, and the company made profit, which I'm told in your first year, not many businesses do. But because it was digital, I didn't really have that many costs, overhead costs. So it was quite lucrative, as the word is. And it just got to a point where, yes, I was making money and I could pay the bills and I had this flexibility. I just got lonely, and because I like being part of a team, and I just felt like I missed having conversations with, like, because obviously I could have conversations online or at like events and stuff, but I missed the like internal conversations where you all sort of, you care about this one thing that you're working towards. And it was, if something bad happened, which is part and parcel of owning a business, that fell on me. If something good happened, it was like a one person party. And yeah, it just got to a point where I just decided that being a savvy businesswoman wasn't for me. And yeah, decided to, and I did speak to, so when I was going through that and running my business, I did know my boss now at like my media pool, and I was always honest with him. And that's when he was like, well, you can come and work for me and you'll still have the flexibility, but you'll have the support and you'll be working with a team and that. So yes, I can say that I've tried it, but it wasn't for me, basically.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, even just running a team can be tough, but let alone having to deal with people's livelihood and things like that. It's funny. I always had the in my head, I'm like, oh, I always want to start a business. And then I get to positions where I need to, like, I'm in charge of someone, like whether they have a paycheck or not, and things like that. And it gets a little scary sometimes. And I realized, like, I'm really great at solving problems and solving like technical issues on SEO for SEO and things like that. I'm not great at HR. And that is the one thing that you really need to be to run a company, right? It's more, you got to be a people person. And sometimes I just don't have the empathy in me when I'm just like, is your work done? No. And it's like, well, I don't care about anything else. And that's not the right way to do it, because I know, like, I need to connect a little bit better with my coworkers, let alone if I was actually the one in charge of everything in there. So I totally get wanting to go back and being part of the team and things like that. There's a special breed to be able to run it all. So, and it's like when because when you're in a team, you can stay up to date with stuff that's happening more because you have conversations, don't you? Or say you want to try something new. I always think it's good to get a second opinion, or just run through ideas with someone else, or get someone's other perspective or other point of view. And I just felt like I didn't really have that when I was on my own. I mean, get your small violin out for me. But yeah, I'm much better. I'm much better being part of a team and having the security of not being my own boss. Right. I think part of my issue is I treat everyone equally, and I don't think you can when you're in equally, as in like me and you can do the same amount of work or same everything. And,
right.
And when you're a CEO, I would expect everyone to be CEO. So it's so that's the tough part.
One of our clients, one of their things that they say is that they don't have a business hierarchy, which I think is quite interesting. So it's like a flat structure, and I think it's a trend that businesses are trying. Don't know how it's like over the pond sort of thing, but it's the idea that everyone is the same, and naturally you do get leaders, don't you? But the fact is that everyone is sort of treated equally, as it were. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting to have as a case study.
We're in a fairly flat organization, Jake and I, and I mean, it has its pluses and minuses. And, I think where it comes down to, if everyone is equal, then you need to have those natural leaders come out to be able to run things. And though I think when you're a natural leader at that point, it's like you like to be crowned a leader in a way, and at a flat organization, you're not. So it's, I think there are some people who are definitely, we have different titles and different levels, but when it comes to like reporting, we have two major departments with two major department heads, and they kind of are in charge of all the direct, raises and promotions and things like that. Everyone else is pretty much equal underneath there, even though there are levels of positions. It really comes down to like what kind of work you'll be doing. And, but when it comes down to the HR type of stuff, you are all equal. So
how much scratch you're making.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, in flat companies, like, don't let anybody fool you. Everybody's not equal. The CEO and the upper level people, like, they're making the most scratch. All right. They're making the most money. So I'm not going to go on a rant here. I've got my problems with flat organizations. I don't have a problem with search discovery in their format. It's much more hierarchical than the last place I came from, in which I had a real big problem with the level of flatness in the organization and the lack of advancement and money advancement opportunities. So anyways, let's get into the news.
Yeah, and it kind of flows right into this, kind of HR, owning an agency, being in charge of hiring. I don't know if everyone's seen, but Bill Hartzer kind of put out a question on Twitter yesterday, basically saying, if I was hiring someone for an SEO position, what questions would I ask them? And then he goes and says he'll start, and his first question would be, what is the Google Florida update, and why was it so significant part of the SEO history? And basically says if they can answer that, he'll hire them on the spot. And followed by a million responses about how he's old school and a boomer and different things in there. But I guess question would have if it's a good question in general. And I think we all have different ways of hiring. And me personally, when it comes to when I am kind of in charge of hiring, and when I've had positions where I was, solely in charge of hiring, I'm a very, I'm not going to say bad, and I'm not going to say thorough either, but I make people do presentations. I like to give them a site and say, whether it's your first SEO job or you're coming in as a director, I like to give you a project and basically say, because I'm going to learn way more than your resume shows me when you sit down and tell me what's wrong with the site. And I'm never saying, like, give me a 2-hour presentation. It's always like 30 minutes. If you were brand new into SEO, maybe it's give me, a presentation on 5 reasons why content's good. Another one, like if you were coming in more advanced, I will give you a site that I know. I won't ever use my own clients because I don't want to seem like I'm trying to get free work, but I'll pick a site out there and just say, hey, here's a website, give me a quick audit and then present me your findings. And that way I can see your thinking behind everything. So I actually, before I even ask questions, that I like to have like a presentation like I'm a client, because then I know if I could stick someone in front of a client. But when it comes to questions, like what kind of questions do you all ask?
Oh, is it me first?
There you go. We'll go to you first, Sarah.
So just confirm the question. So if when you were hiring someone, what kind of questions would you ask them? Okay, so I would ask, first and foremost, their sort of like experiences, and what they've done in SEO sort of thing, and what are the challenges that they've found. Just talk to them and have a conversation, because I think when you have an honest face-to-face conversation with someone, it's quite obvious straight away whether they know what they're talking about or not, and sort of thing. And then I also, so depending when the conversations happened, I might bring up like the latest updates that have happened, because obviously Google is always updating its algorithm, and it's constantly changing. And the times where an update will be given a name is because it's affected, well, this is my understanding though, but it's affected enough sites that there's been enough chitter-chatter in the industry, and then all of a sudden we've got a name for it, sort of thing. So I'll have that conversation and see, okay, because if you are passionate about SEO, one thing that you're going to be on the lookout for is how it's changing. Do you know what I mean? And other things as well. So not just Google's core algorithm, but other things. So for example, BERT, how Google can now use BERT to better understand users' intent and keywords and stuff like that. So having conversations like that. I'd also ask them sort of their goals and their aspirations sort of thing, and where they want to be and what they want to do. I'd like some proof, like some, I don't know, if they could come to the interview and sort of say, this is what I'm really proud of. This is what I did for a client. This was the results and this is why it's so good, sort of thing. Because I think if you've got proof of what they've done, because there's a lot of people who can talk the talk, isn't there? But when it actually comes to doing it, so it'd be good to actually see some proof of that. And I don't know, I maybe check them out a bit before. So like see if they've got like a Twitter profile or a LinkedIn profile, and just see what sort of, if they're getting involved in SEO chitter chatter and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit off the top of my head.
No, that's great. I think it's funny. I take an approach like that to an extent where I get to try to just know the person, because I know if I am working with them, I need to at least like them. So they might have all the answers and might be amazing at that. But if we just don't click, it's not going to be fun for everybody. Right.
And you know, don't you, straight off whether you're going to click with someone or
exactly.
not. And
but then
if they laugh at your jokes, well, you know.
Yeah, and I'm full of bad dad jokes too. So
I love them.
The thing about interviews is, like, I find it really difficult to assess somebody's quality in a 30-minute interview or even in an hour interview, right? Yeah. You often don't know somebody's real true quality in terms of how they're going to perform at work until you've worked with them for quite a while. So for me, the basis of an interview is, do they seem to know what they're talking about? Do they click in terms of their fit within both the role as well as where they're going to be working? Are they, and I think this one's really important, are they naturally curious? Do they want to learn more? Do they have ambition? Are they competitive? Do they have drive? Sarah, I also think it's really important that they show, and this is what I find missing from most resumes that I look at, actual tangible examples that prove out the results, that you've actually driven results. Because you're right, some people do talk a big game, and then you get them in and you find that they've just got no clue and they're just faking it until they make it, right? I will say that this, so this tweet from Bill, I don't know if he meant to like set off the Twitter swarm that can sometimes eat its own young. Sometimes you have to watch out for SEO Twitter, man. If you say the wrong thing, they will come after you. And so I want to be very clear. I don't want to be perceived as like coming after Bill, because I've never met him, but he seems like a nice guy. But the question, so what is the Google Florida update and why was it such a significant part of SEO history? To me, in 2019, is like asking a high schooler about a rotary phone, like, and why it's so important to cell phones today. And it's just like, okay, like, yeah. I love history. I'm a huge history buff, and I'm a believer that if you aren't aware of history, you're not going to recognize it when it is coming back around in today's age. However, this is not the same thing. This is apples to oranges. And the Google Florida update not only has never played a role in terms of my SEO work, I will say that it's kind of like, Back to the Future with the timeline. So like if Google Florida update doesn't happen, then Google Panda and Google Penguin and all of these other updates never happen, right? So it had to happen, and I'm glad it happened. But this thing happened in like the early 2000s, before like 95% of the people that work in SEO were even thinking about SEO. It was barely a thing. So like to ask somebody if they remember that is like, Well, no, because I was in college or high school. Like, no, it's not relevant to how they do their job today.
Surely it's better if someone can demonstrate like things that are happening now, or chitter chatter about what's going to happen in the future. Being hung up, and I think it's a bit like traditionalist, isn't it? I suppose, if that's the right word to use. Yeah. But I do think some SEOers do get a bit caught up on, I don't know, like knowing your stuff. And yeah. I mean, I couldn't sit and tell you like all the updates that have happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I do understand that, and I've looked into and researched how Google has and search engines and the internet has evolved, because I find that interesting. But getting hung up on putting someone on the spot and being like, tell me what this is right now. Do you know what I mean? It's just, It doesn't feel,
Yeah. Right. The last thing I'll say, and I do want to move into talking about the podcast, is like, it's not a freaking pop quiz, right? We're doing SEO, and for the most part, like, very few of my clients have ever been significantly impacted by an algorithm update. And not only that, like, my clients, their problems tend to be way more basic and way more fundamental than all of this stuff. Especially Google Florida, in which, one, no client has ever asked me about that. And two, I've only ever heard one other SEO outside of maybe SEO Twitter a few times actually mention it to me in an office setting. And he mentioned it to me because he was reminiscing about the old days.
which is fine to do.
And that was it.
So neither of you are getting hired. Just telling you, because I expect that.
Suggested that they would walk out of the interview, and I don't think that I would do that. But
honestly, I think the answer is, hey, there's been a million of them. I'd have to look that one back up. But I mean, I was in the business that time, but I'm lucky. I've gotten hit by a couple algorithm updates, but only a couple over the last 10 to 15 years. So. Yeah. And nothing was irreversible. And, it's like a lot of times it's like, hey, your site's not the quality. Like, I mean, I didn't even look up Florida, but I can tell you like that it's probably something to do with your site was not great quality or the links pointing at you. It seems like that's what every update is about. So.
I do have the belief though that so every time that Google rolls out a new update or changes the algorithm or does something different, it's all about bettering the experience for the user. Mm-hmm. So as long as you're doing that with your website and that's your goal, you should be all right with like penalties and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, people do get hit and it's completely unintentional because like it just happens, isn't it, in the SEO world? But if you're there providing value, your website is accessible, you're not deceiving Google. Do you know what I mean? Like the key things, if you're always doing those sort of things, then you should be okay.
You should.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big should, but yeah.
So Sarah, tell us about your podcast, because I want to make sure. We've got about 17 minutes left, and I'm going to apologize to the audience. I have a hard stop, and that was bad planning on my part. But I want to make sure we talk about the SEO SAS podcast and how.
Okay. Well, yes. So the SEO SAS podcast sort of came, or it was born, because me and my friend Hannah. I actually worked with her. That's how I know her. But it was a couple of years ago, and we were at Brighton SEO, like the big conference in the UK. And we saw that the SEO so attendees and speakers at the time tend to be like male orientated. And that seemed to be like, if you looked at the ratio between male speakers and female speakers, male attendees and female attendees, it was more so the males. It seemed to be a male dominated industry at the time. Obviously it's getting better and better as time is going on. But at the same time, we also saw a niche for a female led SEO podcast. Because after after we went to Brighton SEO, we had this conversation. And then when I looked into podcasts, I had a conversation with Hannah. I was just like, we've got an opportunity here. There's not that much female-led SEO, like just SEO podcast. And I think this is an opportunity. And I was quite passionate about it because I wanted to like showcase other amazing females in the SEO community. I also wanted to, I think SEO gets a bad rep for being boring. That's the joke in our office anyway. But yeah, and I wanted to sort of be like, no, it can actually be sort of fun and inspiring. And yeah, and it's not boring at all. And yes, why else? I think, well, yes, we just thought we just needed to do it. And we love to talk about SEO as well. So we thought, why don't we put together a podcast? And yeah, have I explained it enough there?
Yeah. It's kind of like what I think is interesting about SEO podcasts. If clients or if you're somebody that needs SEO, if you want to know like how the SEOs talk, if you wanted to be like a fly on the wall and you want to know how does an SEO talk about SEO to another SEO, that's one reason I would think to listen to Sarah's podcast as well as to ours, because it's kind of what we really think when that sometimes comes through to you as a client or in-house to whoever we're delivering the recommendations to. It's kind of a filtered version of that, and this is a little bit more unfiltered, I would say.
Transparent, I'd like to go with. Transparency. Yeah, and I mean, it's just about having a bit of fun and educating people, because as well, there's a lot of small businesses that don't have the budget to have a marketing team or hire marketing. So there are some things that you can do, like 9 times out of 10, leave SEO to an SEO professional, like, because you don't want to break stuff. But if we can at least be educating businesses and they can start thinking about it, because there's a lot of businesses that have thought about, or they've heard of the term SEO, or they know that they need to do it, but they don't really quite understand it. They don't quite get it. So we like to sort of present it in a way that is accessible, and it's like, I could do that, or that makes sense to me, or no, that is a priority. I need to prioritize this for my website. And we've had some really awesome conversations. And don't get me wrong, I know I said about like it was a female led and wanted to showcase females, but we do invite males on as well. Don't worry. But we've just had amazing people on who are just, the people that we get on just want to share knowledge or share their experiences. And that is so priceless in this industry. Like we've had, so today I actually recorded a podcast with a lady, Claire Carlisle, who her thing is helping small businesses grow by making the most out of local SEO. And it was just like, so just having a conversation about the possibilities of local SEO and Google My Business pages and stuff. We spoke to Carrie Rose, who is awesome she's a creative SEO agency, and their thing is about getting links by doing awesome creative content. And some of the things that, like, talking to her was just amazing as well. We've had Sophie Colley on, who talked to us about search listening. So the idea behind not getting caught up on keywords and search volumes, but more what is it that people are like wanting to know about, what are the topics, sort of thing, and writing content that sort of answers those questions. We've also had a lady on who talked about gamification and how that can help with links to your site, and another way of creating really good content. And then we had the lady, Maylee King, who came on, who gave obviously site speed, page speed is a big factor with SEO. And she came on with so she wrote for Search Engine Watch a piece with practical tips and tools to how to do it. So we're all about like inviting people on to talk about stuff. And we don't, sometimes it's just me and Hannah who will debate stuff. So for example, we'll debate the ongoing debate of what's better, long or short content sort of thing. We'll talk about internal linking. We'll talk about competitive research. So it's a bit of a generalist podcast where we just discuss stuff and basically.
That's awesome. So I'm kind of lucky that I came in on season 2 because Jacob really did a lot of the getting things off the ground and just starting from zero, right? So I got to come in and all that stuff was already set. So that was, easy for me, of course, because it was easy to say yes because I didn't have to do all that groundwork. So what were some of the things that like learning and challenges that you had from just like starting the podcast from zero and getting it to where it is now?
Getting listeners.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. So obviously we had this brain wave and maybe we may have had a few wines when we're like, oh my God, this is an amazing idea. We're going to get loads of listens on our first episode. And it doesn't and it took some time. I mean, we're a year on now and we've just reached 7,000 total downloads. And we get, I don't know, this is me being really transparent and I don't know about your guys' numbers, but
millions and millions.
Millions and millions, same here. No, we get around 150 to about 300 people like per episode sort of thing. And it has been hard to grow it. And at first it is just your mum listening and every episode my mum would like WhatsApp me like, oh, great podcast there. I don't know what you're quite talking about, but you sounded wonderful. But yeah. And so, it was hard, but we just put the time and effort into it. And you do have to think a bit outside the box of how to get your podcast underneath people. So I spent plenty an evening just on LinkedIn messaging people about the podcast. Or another way was like inviting people with who already have a following to come on, because then you're like, okay, and that has helped, I think, peak some of our numbers. We recently did some research. So we did research based around local SEO, where we were talking to those who market local businesses, and we wanted to understand like day-to-day activities and challenges. So we did a survey. I have paid as well, like I did some paid advertising. So yes, getting listeners is hard, especially at the beginning. But if I believe that if your podcast is entertaining, educational, people are going to, and just not shit, basically, people are going to want to listen and stuff. And other challenges is, so obviously it is a side hustle. So you have to factor in, okay, when like recording, editing, there's the research that goes in, there's the sort of talking to your guests when they're going to come on. So there is a lot. At first I was a bit naive and I was like, oh, it'll be easy, it won't take much time at all, just sit in front of a microphone, do a bit of talking and jobs are good. And I was wrong. It takes a lot more than just that. And it's the same, but I'm guessing you guys can relate to that, like the work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I go to iTunes all the time, or the podcast app now, and just type in SEO, and I've been waiting for us to show up there in the top, 50 at least. And I think it's new to me in the SEO side of things, right? Because it's working on Google, working on, just search engines in general for a while. Now trying to like get a podcast to rank in a podcast app. It's not, I'm still learning, right? And we still haven't cracked that. I think there's one podcast that has like 3 episodes, but it ranks like number 3 in the podcast app for some reason on iTunes. And it's like, why are you there? Like you haven't been updated in 4 years and you only put 3 episodes and only one of them had to do with SEO, but yet you rank up there. So I'm hoping like the new podcast, how Apple's broken it out of iTunes, now gets a better algorithm to update those because I think some are trash and there's no way to really, I'm not going to negative attack another podcast, but at the same time, we're really trying to focus on getting our, like, hey, leave a review, follow us, or at least subscribe and things like that.
And how awesome is it when, like, so when we got our first ever review, oh my gosh, it was like champagne at the ready, because that's a little bit. So when you're first doing the podcast and you have no idea how it's going, really. Like, yes, you can look at numbers and how many people are listening, but it's not until you get reviews or even like people reaching out saying, oh, this is an awesome podcast. I remember the first time we got an email and I lost it because I was like, oh my God. But it's like when people are saying good stuff about your podcast, and that it gives you more reason, doesn't it, to carry on.
Endorphins.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to wrap this up. Be respectful of everybody's time. But we usually ask a question at the end of every podcast, and this is going to be the question this time. So it's usually about what kind of advice would you give? We usually make it general about SEO, but I want to make it more about podcasting. So what would be one piece of advice you would give someone who wanted to start a podcast tomorrow? What was the first thing or the best piece of advice you can give them?
Make sure it's a topic that you're passionate about and you really can get your teeth stuck into it, and you're just going to live and breathe it, because if you're not passionate about something, you're just not going to make it work. And that is the top. And just make it educational, make it fun, don't be shit. And sorry, a bit sweary.
I've already failed that. I don't even care about SEO.
Don't be shit. That's good life advice.
Yeah, that's good life advice.
I live by that.
I would definitely recommend, if you want to do a podcast, definitely do it, because you just get, like, for this conversation right now, it's been amazing. And your guys' podcast is so good. And like, I was a bit nervous when you invited me onto yours, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to really work here.
We don't know what we're doing. We wing it all the time.
But yeah, definitely, if you want to start a podcast tomorrow, just make sure you've got a topic that you're passionate about. You've got to spend a bit of time on your graphic as well. I'd say that, because you need that to pop, don't you? In the when people are searching, and format as well. Think of a format. So for example, our format is we always have a feature at the end to make it fun, and it's normally Hannah testing me on my general knowledge, which I have none of, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think I gave more than one bit of advice there. Sorry.
That's good. Bonus material.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. It's been great. We've really enjoyed the conversation. I was typing to Jake. I was like, I could talk to people from the UK all day. I just love it. But so thanks for coming on the show, and everyone else. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but have happy holidays.
Yeah, it's going to be coming out in a few weeks. We've had some scheduling snafus. We're trying to space out the episodes, so we're recording 3 episodes in 1 week. But nonetheless, go and connect with Sarah. Go find her podcast. Listen. Yep. And Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Page 2 podcast. If you'd like to find out more about the show or listen to more episodes, visit us at page2podcast.fm. That's page, 2, podcast.fm. Our episodes are also available on a number of other platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Deezer, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. Additionally, you can also listen to our show on our new YouTube channel. If you'd like to become a sponsor or would like to be interviewed, get in touch with us at thepage2podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, happy optimizing.